Hey, what's up? My name's Austin, and today I'm going to be sharing how I would learn to code if I was to start over. I'll also share some of my stories of how I learned to code and what I wish I had a chance to redo. So before we continue, I want to say thank you to today's sponsors, Geeks for Geeks. As you begin your coding journey, you need to know if you want to work at big companies such as Meta, Google, and Amazon, you have to be well versed in two concepts: data structures, which are the building blocks of software development, and algorithms, which is the efficient method to solve coding problems in order to pass their technical interviews. These interviews can be difficult, but that's where Geeks for Geeks is here to help. Geeks for Geeks is offering many courses that will train you on concepts on exactly what product-based companies are looking for. Amongst these are data structure and algorithms, and the complete test series are the courses that I like the best. These self-paced courses are taught by one of the most credible and distinguished educators in India, along with a team of experts. They'll also go through all the basic concepts you need to understand for these interviews, such as the depth of mathematics needed and how to master important topics that will show up in your technical interview, such as recursion, arrays, trees, sorting, strings, heaps, and really everything else that you need to learn. Apart from theoretical learning, they have live project where you can practice and apply your learnings on real-world projects. There's also a practice portal where you'll be able to practice problems that will be similar to what you would see in a technical interview, not to mention find events and job opportunities. There's also a problem of the day to help you develop a consistent habit of practicing coding. The course will also be constantly updated to what is most up to date in today's industry and provide 24/7 one-on-one doubt support to help clear any doubts you have. After finishing this course, you'll know all there is to data structure and algorithms. There are already thousands of students who have benefited from this and got their dream jobs all across the globe. So go use my link in the description along with the code AUSTIN10 to get a 10% discount and lifetime access to the course. It's never too early to start preparing for these technical interviews, and I highly recommend it. Because with this course, you'll become confident in preparing for software engineering interviews with top-notch product-based companies. So I'm going to break this topic into two separate videos. In today's video, I'll talk about what in my opinion is the best path to start if you want to learn coding. In addition to how to approach learning how to code, because in reality, it's a lot different than any other subjects. I'll then share some of my favorite online resources that I would use if I was just learning to code. Once you get the basics in coding down, I'll talk more how to prepare yourself so you can get a job in a future video. So quickly, I'll share my journey of how I began to code. I actually did not go into college to study computer science, and I wrote my first line of code in my junior year of college after wanting to learn more about the subject since I had many friends who majored in it. I share this because even though I was a late starter at the time, I was still eventually able to get my foot in the door, and it just goes to show that you don't even necessarily need to have a computer science degree in order to get hired as a software engineer at a tech company. Granted, this was at a time where coding bootcamps were not common, so at the time, getting a software engineering job without a computer science degree seemed impossible at the time, especially since I saw almost every job description required a bachelor's degree in computer science. That being said, my journey into coding certainly wasn't linear, and I'll share with you what I wish I knew then before I began learning how to code. But anyways, let's go back in time and say I didn't know how to code and wanted to learn coding. There are three paths I can take. One is the traditional route, which is to enroll in a 4-year university with a typical computer science major. Another is to teach yourself via online resources which come both in paid and free versions. And third is a coding bootcamp, which is essentially an online programming course where will teach you the most practical languages and projects, in addition to job support so you can find a job in tech. So if you take the university route, this is where you'll learn the concepts of computer science and build many school projects where you can present to companies in the future, demonstrating your ability to code. You'll also be able to apply for internships during the summer to have additional experience on your resume, which is a plus when it comes to applying for jobs. There's also a very good chance you may get a return offer to work full-time after an internship. Personally, I think this is the best way to learn how to code because having a computer science degree is the tried and proven way to show to companies that you can code. And at this point, this has been the common formula for entry-level software engineering jobs. Not to mention, if you could rack up some internships and relevant work experience before graduating, getting a job shouldn't be too difficult. Obviously, the downside to the university route is it's pretty expensive, and it could take 3 to 4 years, so it's frankly not really viable at a certain age. That being said, if going to university is not something you can do, the next best option I would do is to apply for a coding bootcamp because these programs give you structure and get you job ready relatively quickly in comparison to university. Again, it can also get pretty expensive, but to my knowledge, a lot of these programs even claim that you don't have to pay them anything until you find a job. I've seen a lot of people on LinkedIn who have gone to these coding bootcamps and eventually got jobs, so Even though it does sound pretty crazy to go from no coding experience into a job into such a short amount of time, it clearly is possible. That being said, I still believe you can make yourself marketable if you are just to learn by yourself through online resources. Obviously, the benefit of doing this is it's extremely affordable because you don't have to pay anyone to teach you, as there are so many free resources out there today. But I admit this approach really requires a lot of hard work and discipline due to the lack of structure. That's why I'm a bit hesitant to recommend this to a person, because if you don't really have a good work ethic or know exactly what you're doing, you could really just end up not being adequately prepared for a tech job after a long time. But nonetheless, I realize that the university bootcamp route is expensive, so don't let money stop you from learning how to code. Okay, so now I've talked about what are the best paths to take when it comes to learning code. I want to talk about how I'd approach learning code, especially if you decide to learn coding via university, because in reality, it is very different than every subject you learn in school. So the first thing I want to share when it comes to learning how to code is that learning how to code actually requires a lot of doing. Confused? Let me explain. Usually when we want to learn a subject in school, such as biology or history, the process of learning these subjects is basically the same. Teacher teaches in class and we passively learn. Sometimes we'll take notes on a notebook or read a textbook to reinforce the knowledge, but overall, that's the process of learning these subjects. Now, I thought learning how to code was going to be the same thing when I first signed up for my first computer science class in college. At that time, I literally never wrote a line of code before, but I thought I would be fine because the class was called Intro to Java, but in reality, it was pretty overwhelming. At the beginning, the lectures made sense. The professor would show us basic coding principles such as an if-else statement or a loop if you wanted to execute a statement multiple times. Easy enough, but then the teacher would just send us an assignment that seemed super complicated. I still remember my very first assignment was to design a program to write my name via a turtle tracing program. To make matters worse, I didn't even know how to download the software to start my assignment, which at the time was Hello Java. Unlike a math class, for example, where a professor would go through problems that would be similar to the homework, lectures felt very simple and easy to understand, but then somehow, when it came to assignments, I was expected to code a program in Java by next week. And at that time, it felt like composing a song in a foreign language without even knowing the actual language. Needless to say, it was a long week. So especially now, if you plan to learn to code, please don't just rely on the university to teach you how to code. Thankfully today, there are many online resources that teach you how to code, assuming you have no knowledge of it at all. So now knowing what I know now, if you're going to take a computer science class at a university, I'd greatly recommend first learning the language before you even start the class, as that would greatly ease the transition of learning how to code. One website I would recommend that I personally used when I started was Codecademy, which now when I look, it looks even more robust than when I used it like 7 years ago. Like I mentioned about learning by doing, the great thing about Codecademy is that it's literally going to take you step by step on how to code, literally walking you slowly like as if you never learned how to code, to the point where eventually you can build some pretty cool things. Another online resource I'd recommend is Udemy, which offers cheap courses that not only teach you coding concepts, but often they'll give you projects that you'll be able to put on your portfolio to share with companies in the future. Alright, I think for now this is a good place to stop if you're just beginning to start your journey on learning how to code. Coding is definitely something very unique, so don't be discouraged if it's too difficult at first. Just take it slow and even do the exercises multiple times to really reinforce the concepts. Alright, best of luck! Thanks for watching today's video. If you like content like this, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're interested in learning how to pass technical interviews to get into tech companies such as Meta, Google, and Apple, be sure to watch this video here. Alright, thanks guys.